Hi, so welcome to Suitcase Divas. Today we are going to be talking about group travel and how you split the cost for that. Traveling with friends and family is amazing until it's time to split the bill. And I think that we're going to talk a little bit more about how to go into doing it more fairly. So, in this episode, we're diving into the nitty gritty of group travel, from dividing accommodations fairly to planning activities that are kind of balancing the group versus solo time. And we'll help you navigate the tricky world of the shared expenses, hopefully without trying to avoid the drama, right? That's what our goal is
Yes,
today.
because you can't. We've been on these trips, and if you don't have conversations before, it can lead to drama and who's doing what. So, and we've talked about this before. This topic has come up in multiple conversations about how do you split it up, where do you split it up, and what are you splitting up, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And I think what the biggest takeaway here is going to be is communication is key. It's always going into it with an clear understanding of who's paying for what and who's sleeping where and how you're structuring that breakdown. So we're
And
going to
what are
talk
your expectations as a traveler, as someone who's spending the money? Like if I'm forking over money, I have a certain expectation of how I've spent that money. So it's very interesting when we were doing research for this, the different things that we found
yeah.
with our own experiences as well.
So let's talk accommodations, sleeping arrangements, okay? So equal splitting versus tiered splitting. Does the person that's sleeping on the sleeper sofa in the living room split the same amount or pay the same amount as the friends or couple that is in the master suite with a big private bathroom and the shower? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's probably the first question most people talk about. And when I say, I'm going to say argue about, but what I found in these chats and discussing with other people is so many people don't really want to have the conversations of who's getting the twin bed or who's if
Or the bunk
or
beds,
the
the
bunk
children's
beds.
bunk beds.
Yeah. Or the
Listen, I have a
sleeper
bad
sofa,
back. I'm not paying the same for a bunk bed that I know that I'm probably going to
right?
be cracked out in by the second night. And I mean, I need at this point in my life, Miss D is not sleeping on a bunk bed. I'm just telling you that.
I will say there, I like how you said at your point in your life right now, because there are plenty of times where I've gone on group trips, especially with kids. Like if I've gone with other moms and we've
Yeah.
taken our kids, I'm
Hmm.
like, I'll take the sleeper sofa or I'll take the twin, or we've even taken air mattresses. And I'm like, yeah, I'm bringing a good air mattress. I'll sleep on that. And this price has been split evenly. However, now I want a bed. It depends on the length of the trip, but I really do
Exactly.
want a
Right.
bed.
And I always had no problem if we were doing it with each family got a room. We had no problem if there was only one bed and our kids would sleep on the sleeper sofa. I mean, or
Right.
the air
Oh, that's
mattress.
another thing that came up was when you're traveling with family, and let's say they got a big Airbnb or a big cabin or something like that. The families, and there's 5 rooms, but there's 6 family members. This isn't counting like their offspring. Um, so you've got like mom and dad in one room, and then you've got the married siblings in the other room, and then you have one single sibling. A lot of things I read is that single sibling usually gets stuck to the sleeper sofa while the kids might get a room. The grandkids, the younger kids might get a room,
Right.
instead of putting that single adult sibling in their own room and letting the kids sleep on the sleeper sofa. I saw that a lot in the Reddit threads when I was looking up some
See,
of
in
this
that
stuff.
situation, I think the adult should get his own room.
Absolutely.
The adult sibling, because kids kids can sleep anywhere,
They
honestly.
do.
And
Yeah.
in their little bodies, they get the damn sleeper sofa. The bar in the
Right.
back is not my friend.
But
And
I will
so,
say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm just saying I would give precedent over, but I will say, if we're in a room and you want 2 rooms out of that house, and because you want your husband and wife to sleep together, and then you want your kids in a separate room, you should have to pay twice as much than me
Absolutely.
fitting all my 2 children and in my room on a sleeper sofa. I mean, I don't know why I keep calling it a sleeper sofa. It's always an air mattress. It's that kind you plug in and
Right.
it's a
Yeah.
decent sleeping setup. And my kids were always fine. And sometimes the closet would be big enough that they had their own little kind of fort type of deal. Like
Right.
we've done try to make it fun or whatever, but the point is I'm not paying the same amount if all my children are in one room and you've taken up two of the rooms in the house. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So it's interesting because some of the ways that you divide, if you have a 5 bedroom house, you're dividing by the bedrooms. But if you have a 5 bedroom house, say with a loft, and someone is expected to sleep in that loft, are you then splitting it by person? Are you then that person just doesn't like, then I think you have to take into consideration a different style of split.
Right. And that should be a discussion you have up front before you
Absolutely.
take the trip. Because, like my friend, my bestie Tony, he always wants his own room and his own bathroom. And he makes really good money. So he doesn't have a problem with paying, like, he's one person in a room, but he wants his own room and he doesn't mind splitting it per room because he wants that extra space for himself.
Right.
And we've always had that understanding up front,
I agree with that. My next question, talking about accommodations, would be splitting up the rooms, because usually there's always the master and then there's one that has like 4 beds in it or 3 beds, whatever. It's got like a queen and a bunk bed or something. How do you decide who gets the master? And then also to follow up with that, does the planner slash organizer of this entire trip get first dibs on the room? Like what? That's another
In
part
my
of
friend group, the
the
answer is no.
conversation.
I do not. But what we have done in the past, usually when we have a girl, our college besties, a group of 6 of us ladies, and so we always try to get a 3 bedroom. Now we do, just to be mindful, in the past we've tried to be like, okay, you guys got the master suite last time, so this time somebody else gets it. And we've had to draw straws too. We've even drawn straws for who rooms with who, as not to have to be like, I don't want a room with her. No, I don't want a room with her. You know what I mean? Like we're all friends. And at the end of the day, you're just sleeping in a bed for whatever amount of time.
Right.
My only requirement there is I'll sleep with whichever of my lovely friends I get the name of, but I do want a bed. I don't want, and I don't think that the sleeper sofa person in the living room that does not have their own bathroom, that does not have their own privacy, should have to pay the same amount as somebody that has a legit bed and bathroom and shower at their disposal. You know,
Right. That
um,
there is a lot that goes into figuring out um the who gets to bed, who's paying for what, which is why honestly most of the time I prefer a hotel. I really would rather we block rooms in a hotel. We put that way everybody has beds, there's a bathroom. I just
I
I,
think that what takes the fun out of that a little bit is, at least in an Airbnb or in a house, you have that common living room where you can watch movies or play games late night. I did like that. Like when we went to the beach, we had the 3 bedroom condo. It was perfect because everybody had their own bed, everybody got their own bed. Um, and it was nice to have the kitchen in the living room where we played board games and cards, and we had that bonding time. And I think that it takes away in a hotel. But if you're it depends on what you're trying to get out of that trip. That was
right.
our girls' trip retreat where we were doing
And it was
like,
at the beach, which you do have a lot more downtime. And you're not going out and about as much. I totally get that.
so I think that depends on, what you're looking to get out of the trip too.
Yep. I
And it's
totally
hard for
get
us to justify not getting the discount at the Marriott's, but we have the Marriott villas and stuff too. So we're kind of extra
yeah.
savage. But
And I think that might be some of it too, is like if I'm going to be paying this much for a room in an Airbnb that I one would have to potentially clean up, which I not that I'm messy, I do clean up, but I like the perks of a hotel.
yeah, somebody
I
coming
can
in and making the
go
bed and
down and get breakfast,
mhm.
coffee. I don't have to do anything. Now, with the girls trip or with a group trip where we're all trying to hang out and it's more of a social where we're really chilling at the lodging as opposed to spending a lot of time out and about, and our plans are to like cook meals or eat in, I totally get the value in that. And that kind of leads us into the next conversation. The next thing you have to consider on group trips is food. If you're at an Airbnb, are you and you're cooking, how are you splitting groceries? If you do go out to dinner and you have a large group, how are you splitting that bill? Are you splitting it evenly? Are you doing single checks? But here's the kicker with that. Some places don't, once you have an like I think it's 8 or more, some are 6 or more, they don't let you split the check. And then they already charge gratuity on top of that. So how are
Mm,
we splitting the checks? What do we do with the drinkers versus the non-drinkers? Like that goes into, and also like you and I've had this discussion. We pick, we nitpick.
we're
You and I
birds
most of the time will
practically.
split
Yeah.
an entree
We can split an appetizer and be fully, completely full.
because we're just snacking really
And
the whole time.
we're drinking some vino. So this has definitely been a point of contention when I've gone on to trips because of that same thing. Some of my friends are really foodies and they want to get an appetizer and they want to get the meals and then they want to get dessert and then they want to, you know what I mean? Like that's a lot of layers of food that I don't want anything to do with. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't eat a lot of food and I'm not really a foodie. So for me, when it was the 6 of us and they've all had appetizers and the main dishes and the desserts and stuff like that, and I've had like a salad and my glass of wine. It's like the Friends episode.
Oh, yes.
She's like, I'll have a side salad on whatever that they're having, and thank you. And she's like, and what else? She's like, you can just put it right here. But she's like, I don't think you guys understand that we don't make as much money as you, or we're not as invested in food as you. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
all you're interested in is having a dessert and a glass of wine, whereas the other person has an appetizer and a meal and a dessert, that person that just had a piece of pie and a glass of wine definitely shouldn't be splitting equally with what everybody else at the table got, you know?
I agree.
So I've had to bring that up in my friend group, and my friend group has been amazing about it. And they're like, we totally agree because we see that you eat like a bird, and we're over here noshing on our lasagna, and we're still going to get the cheesecake. So, you know, they do realize that we have very different eating habits. My friend group has been great about it, but I do know that it's a point of contention within a lot of other group parties. You know, have you
Yeah.
had it come up where you are with a group?
Not particularly where it was such a habit, but honestly, I don't go out a ton where we're in such large groups that I can't get a split bill. Or I can't go up and pay at the bar or something like that. I can't say, hey, can I have my bill on the side or something like that. But what makes it awkward for me is if we're at a group setting and the server comes up to ask split check and we hadn't had that conversation, I don't want to answer it. That I
Mm.
hesitate to answer
You're
it
ostriching at
because,
that point.
well, I can't speak for the whole group. I don't feel comfortable. I'm fine with a group check and us set if I'm with a group of people I know and I'm comfortable with, because and which is usually how it is. I'm assuming we're all on the same page and I trust my friends for us to settle up. And often it's like, okay, I grab dinner tonight, you grab it tomorrow kind of thing if we're out and about. But that can bite you in the ass too, because you have a big dinner one night and I'm with you. I don't like to eat unless I'm going somewhere where food is like when we went to Hawaii, I ate everywhere I could because I was experienced. I'm not a foodie, but I like food. I
Hmm.
don't know enough about food. I don't have the fancy palate, but if you put something in front of me that looks or smells or I'm in a new area, I want to try something new. So,
Well, and you like seafood, so that would be the perfect place in Hawaii. I'm
well,
sure they
just
do.
anywhere I go that's different from outside of what I would normally get, I'm absolutely going to try it, but I'm not going to eat heavy like that. I don't eat heavy when I travel. I'm one of those people that have this huge phobia of getting some type of stomach issue on a vacation.
Yeah,
So I'm very
same.
cautious about what I eat.
Yes. And I'm
Or
not a huge branch outer. You know this
yeah,
about me.
you're not, and I am. So there are times where like we'll go out. I would rather go out one night and then just splurge on dinner and figure out like try all the things of the area that we're in. And then the rest of the time I'm fine having smaller meals throughout the day or snacks or packing as we go. I don't like sit down dinners a lot.
Yes,
I want them
same.
once in a while. I don't want to
Hmm.
sit in a restaurant all night and shoot the shit. I really want to kind of go do something or listen to music or whatever. So my biggest thing is I want to know what our plan is going in. Are we splitting the check or are we settling up later? That's really just my thing is I will go along with it until it becomes a problem within that friend group where it's someone, if we're splitting the check evenly and it's becoming known, oh, well, this person's constantly ordering most expensive item on the meal, and I'm ordering over here my go-to chicken quesadilla if it's a place
Right.
I really like, and I go to often, kind of thing. Whatever it is.
Yeah, I hear you.
Ultimately, like you said, again, in this part, you got to have a conversation, make a plan. Now, buying groceries, if you're staying at Airbnb,
Yeah.
I've done this with family. Um, when I've traveled with family, we have talked about, okay, you have dinner this night, or you're in charge of the meals that day. That
Right.
includes lunch and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
But that just means you have to bring stuff for everybody to make a sandwich or make something for lunch. You don't have to cook that, but you do have to you have to plan this day's meals, period. And they
Mm-hmm.
kind of alternate. Everybody had a day.
We've done that before in the big family beach trips and stuff. And we all have a night we're responsible for cooking if we're not going out to dinner that night. And that works out. That was in a big group. There was like 25 of us in that spring break group. So it just made more sense for everybody to kind of take on a night of dinner.
But you know
Um,
what stresses me out is when we try to make a menu. When we were planning the beach trip in October and everybody wanted to plan the menu, like we're having this night for dinner, we're having this night for dinner. So we got to bring this seasoning, we got to bring this and that. Let's try to bring XYZ from home so we don't have to buy at the grocery store.
right.
We bring the bare necessities, like we will bring our bread, maybe some, and actually now that the kids are older, we don't travel with them as often. We rarely pack anything except for what we already have in our house that we might want, and then we just grocery shop when we're there. I don't want to have to
Cart
meal
back and
prep
forth.
at this
Yeah.
point. That stressed me out. I was like, guys, I really don't care what we eat, because if it comes down to it, I will eat some ramen and a sandwich if we're sitting out at the hotel or at the Airbnb drinking and playing games. I'm good. Give me some chips and salsa. I
Yeah.
don't need, I don't want to have to work that hard to go on vacation.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
But I understand it.
I'm totally on board with you there. And I think that as long as you're having discussions about what the expectations are going into the trip, because there's been some people that are like, I'm not cooking for a group of 25 on that night. I'll have it catered in and I'll pay for it or whatever, but I don't want to cook. And then that's your choice too. That no worries.
Absolutely. Yep.
I would rather, I don't mind doing the cooking for one night. That's not a big deal. But when you are going out to restaurants and trying to figure all that all out, we came across an amazing app when we were just doing our research. And what is that app called, Cheryl?
Splitwise. And
Splitwise.
I had never heard of this, but
It's fabulous.
right. So Denise and I pulled and created a mock trip just to see what it was like. I put in some expenses, she put in some expenses. So we were able to create the trip, and on our dashboard it shows just that trip. And so obviously if we had more, it would show different trips or family groups. That's the other thing it had, was family groups, but this is for trip purposes. We created the trip and I threw in some expenses and who was paying, how the split was, are we splitting it evenly, who paid it, and then she threw in some so that I could see what it looked like. This app told us, okay, so and so, like Denise paid this, so you owe her this. And then if I
Yeah,
had
it
paid,
keeps track of everything for
right?
you.
And we added a third person just so we could see, because obviously two is easy to figure out, but we did add a third person just to see what it was. And it said what the split would be like three ways. So we could even take that and say, okay, don't split this evenly, give us like 20% to the third person, because they may have not ordered drinks that night and we want to take that off if it was a drinking event or whatever. So I really like that you were able to do that. And then there was a settle button. So you can hit the settle up to show so and so settled up with
And
XYZ.
you can even take pictures of your receipts. Like if
Yes.
you,
Now that was on the pro version. So the free version lets you do what we were just talking about, creating the group, adding your people,
yeah.
and everybody can add the expenses and how they're split. For I think it was like $40 for the year. You can
Or can you do it monthly or it's only a
you
year?
can do monthly. It was $4.99 I think a month. But if you are someone who travels a lot or goes out with groups or has a family and you want to keep track, I would check into it, because to me, if I'm paying three or 4 months, it's just worth it for me to pay that one time so I don't forget to not renew every month if I don't need it.
Right. Yeah, no,
But
I get you.
if you do get the pro version, you do get to upload your receipts, which honestly, that right there is huge. So while you're at
Yeah.
the restaurant, you already have this group trip set up in your app. You just open the app, add the expense, scan it right there. You don't have to worry about losing it. I was just telling Denise, I still have not entered in our receipts from our last Divas trip from January. They're still in a
Yeah.
Ziploc
Well, we went to
bag
Podfest.
on, I actually think they're in my coat pocket that I wore on that trip. I don't think I've even taken them out, but this way I could easily do that. But you get unlimited expenses. What else does it have? We don't need that one. Charts and graphs, receipts was the biggest thing, itemization. What else do you get? There's some other new features, but
Yeah, so
I'm
definitely
loving
check
this
out
app.
Splitwise, guys. It's worth checking into if you do group outings with food and lodging and any of that good stuff. So definitely check that
Yeah.
out.
All right, so we talked about like splitting rooms and splitting meals and how does that work? But what about time? We've previously talked about different types of travelers, those that just like to kind of take it slower, either they're morning people and they're up and going, or they're night people or whatever, or they want a group activity or they just want to sit back and relax. So when you're planning a group trip and you're planning your time and your activities, how are we splitting that? Are you allowing time for solo? Or are you expecting everybody to do everything together?
I think when you're on vacation, you should be able to do what as much as you want together. And if you want some downtime, like this is going to be an I keep talking about our upcoming trip to Napa. But so some people want to do like a mud bath, and I you would not pay me to sit inside a mud bath. So, but there's other things at the spa I want to do. But if that was something that they just wanted to do, and I just wanted to like buy a bottle of wine and overlook, just sit outside and enjoy whatever with my book. I think it should be whatever you want to do. It should never be mandatory. And not to mention, the other thing was that was like $270 for this mud bath. And I think that's such a waste of money. I'd rather be buying wine, bottles of wine with that money, like that's my priority. We're in Napa. I'd much rather spend my extra funds or my vacation funds on a wine tasting versus sitting in a mud bath. So I think you should definitely be allowed to do both. I don't think anything should be mandatory, and because then it's just not as you don't have the freedom to do what you want to do on vacation, and it's not gonna be the best vacation you could have.
I agree. I think when you're planning a group vacation or a group getaway, you should plan for your own downtime or not have the expectation that everybody's together. I think when it's a specific style of trip, whether it's like take a bridal party, for example, if you're going
Mhm.
away for a bridal weekend, bachelorette party, there's expectations that is a group outing.
And you're
However,
there to support the bride. So you
correct.
really need to go along with what she
But
wants
even
to do
in
for the
that
most part.
instance, before you plan those activities and I say this to the planners of the group as part of, I like to be the planner of activities like that. You've
Yeah.
got to make sure the activities you're planning, especially if you're expecting everybody to participate, you're staying within everybody's budget. You need to know upfront what the expectations are of what people are willing to spend. Because usually, if it's some type of like wedding celebration or birthday celebration, you're covering somebody else's cost as well. So not
Mhm.
only are you paying for your own, but you're kicking in some for whoever you're celebrating.
Right.
So it needs to be very transparent on what's going on and what the expectations are from the planner, from the person being celebrated, as well as from the travelers. Like that's a lot to navigate and make sure you're being respectful of everybody. And I think even in that instance of a bachelorette party, let's use that as an example, you can have a plan and have 5 activities for the weekend and someone still be able to sit it out because they're like, one, I don't like it. It's not my jam. Like if I were to say, hey, Denise, I want to go celebrate for my birthday and I want to go back to Vegas and jump off the stratosphere. You're not going to do that.
I sure am not, sweetie. But I'll
But
cheer
I
you
would
on.
never expect that. Exactly. Like we can make a combo of those things. Or if I was doing something like it was going to take a couple hours, like zip lining, I you wouldn't want to go. So I'd be like, girl, you sit back here and have some drink and read your book, and then I'll tell you about it and show you the pictures when I get back. Like, I think we need to be respectful of our fellow travelers just as much as
Yes.
we are of the person we're celebrating when it comes to planning groups, like group trips where that is the expectation.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like and for this Napa trip, they want to hire a private chef one night to come in and cook. And I can appreciate that. And so for that, I depending on the cost, I mean, I'm not spending like $300 a person, but if it's kind of, within a reasonable budget of what I would have spent eating out at a restaurant that night,
Mhm.
then I'll take one for the team there because they really want to do it. There's six of us, even though I'm not a foodie, and I would probably pay
It's
way
still part of
less.
the experience at
It's
that
part of
point.
the
Like
friend
you're
group
chalking that up
experience.
to the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that that's why you have to be a little bit flexible when you're with a group. And I will say it comes with experience too. Our girl group in our 20s was a bit more not as understanding, I would say. Maybe just because they come from different backgrounds. I put myself through college. I was always working two jobs. I was always more mindful of what I was spending because I didn't have my parents didn't just send me off to college and I had certain amount of money I was given a month. That did not happen. I put myself through school and, so we all have different backgrounds and dynamics and financial situations is what it really comes down to, especially when you're young.
Well, even
So
even as we get older, we're all in different phases of our life, even though we might be in the same, we all might be married with kids, but we're still at different financial stages of our life and
sure.
need
Yeah,
to
but I
be
think we're more
respect. Yeah.
understanding. You see what I'm saying? I think
Oh,
as
yeah.
adults, we're more mature about it and we understand that Sally might not have as much money as Katie,
Right.
but we can figure it out so that Sally's not uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Right.
We want to
Yeah.
make everybody feel like they're having a good trip. So, um, yeah,
So
I
how
think
do we, what are some good ideas or good ways to avoid all this money drama before a group trip?
I think I really think it comes down to just clear communication of what you're willing to spend, understanding the expectation that everybody is allowed to participate in whatever excursions they want, and and if they don't want to go, they should be able to kick it back home and read a book versus go drop $150 on a wine tasting. You know what I mean? Like we have this gorgeous house rented with a beautiful fenced in backyard and a hot tub and a lanai and all that stuff. So I'm probably not going to be going out wine tasting every single time. I probably just buy a bottle at Oxbow Market and come kick it in the hot tub and listen to my music and just chillax. Cause that is kind of my happy place, that downtime and that just enjoying the environment. That to me, I look forward to. So it doesn't have to be like go, 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 go,
Right. Yeah, I definitely think communication is number
key.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Let everybody knowing what everybody's expectation is. I also think this is something that people often don't think about when they're planning group trips. What happens if someone has to cancel after the number and the budget has been set, or even
That
deposits are being made?
sucks because I think you'd
Because
have to divide it by five instead of six or whatever,
exactly, then it becomes, so there needs to be a plan in place for, is any of the money refundable? Or I actually read a story on Reddit about someone from a group trip suing the planner of that trip because they
But was it
bailed.
a planner or a friend that was planning? Because
It
that's
was the
different.
planner of the trip, the friend who was the organizer of the trip,
Okay.
not a travel
Not a
agent, not a
travel agent.
professional or anything like
Right.
that. This was just because in every group trip, there is someone who is organizing it. The
Mhm.
level of what they do depends on that personality and that friend group.
Right. Yeah, sure,
But
sure.
there's usually someone who's spearheading, hey, let's get this going, who's making the reservations, who's doing this and that. So this planner, the organizer of this group, got sued by the person who canceled after all the deposits and everything had been paid. It was almost, I think, at the final payment towards, so they were that close to leaving and they couldn't get the money back because everything had been paid for
I
And
think you are responsible as somebody going on the trip. You shouldn't be able to just wash your hands of all the money. I mean, I guess it depends on the situation.
it depends on when you cancel and how far along in the planning are we. How
Right.
have
And what's the
deposits been
reason for
paid?
canceling? If it's that you got another better offer, then I think you should be held accountable. If your mom died or something like that, there's a death in the family where
Or
you
you
had to
lost your,
be.
yeah. Because I think this particular one, I don't remember because I read a couple. One lady had lost her job and she had tried and then she was just like, I can't. But this one, the one that sued, oh, I know why. It was a group. Oh, and this is something I don't recommend. And this is why I recommend if you are trying to put a large group together, reach out to a professional planner, a travel agent,
Yes.
or a travel concierge or a travel organizer because they have the tools to keep the personal out of this. But these two ladies decided they do a yearly trip and they wanted to make it a women's trip. So they advertised it in like their local chat group, whatever they were in, Facebook. They had some connection, but they didn't personally know these people. They ended up, say, with 10 people going. As they were going through the stages, it ended up being 6. And some of the things that they had scheduled, they had originally planned for, they had to scale back as people dropped off.
Okay.
So at right before near departure time, I mean, I don't know, I don't remember how far apart it was from them leaving. The lady who wanted to cancel, let's call her Karen. Not that I know that she was being a Karen, but I'm just saying that because so
Let's
anyway,
call her Karen.
she said there's I thought there would be more going on this trip and you didn't do X, Y, and Z. You instead of getting this house, you got this house. Well, they scaled back the house because they scaled back the people. And they
Right.
were transparent about this throughout this. Going through all of this, they had paid all of it at this point. I believe
Hmm.
everything had been paid for pretty much. And she's like, I want the money back. And you can't really do that. You can't really get that because that lady, the planner would have been paying out of pocket because everything had been paid for at this point.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
at that point, I think that's on Karen. Unless if so, the girl that lost
what
her
I'm saying,
job,
hold on.
did she
No,
try to
this
get
wasn't
somebody
in here.
else?
That was a different one. This one who is suing this is why I want to be clear about though when you're planning a group like this, especially with people that aren't you don't know them super well because
Right. I wouldn't do that, first of all.
she said you broke the contract. This was the key word. This is what you originally said in your email, in your Facebook post, whatever it was. She said, this is what you said we were going to do. And throughout, let's say it took them 6 months to plan this. Throughout the 6 months, these 3 things changed. That's why you broke this contract. And I'm suing you for it because you won't give me the money.
Hmm.
First, that wasn't a contract.
Yeah. This lady isn't a travel agent, right? She's just a
No,
friend in the
she is
group.
just she's just like somebody out there who said, let me put this group together. So I'm just forewarning people. I had never heard of this. The headline on Reddit drew me in because I'm like, oh, who is suing somebody from a group trip and what did that entail?
I
And
don't think she can legally do that.
who knows? I mean, you can sue for anything, but whether she'll win is neither here nor there. But just to prevent that type of thing, cover yourself, guys. You want to, it's a CYA moment. Be careful
Hmm.
about how you're wording things. Be careful where you're advertising this stuff and make sure you're being super transparent and keeping everything documented. That's what I'm looking for. But anyway, that
Hmm.
was just my little warning and like, hey, seek out help. There are people out there like Denise and
There's
I,
travel professionals out
yes,
there
travel
that do this
professionals
for a
that do
living.
that. I was shocked when I read that one. That one, I actually saved that one because I'm like, oh, I'm going to go back and read the whole comments. I read some of the comments. I didn't get a chance to read them all, but I thought that was interesting. Um, what do you think about having a designated money person? That was one of the things suggested in a group setting like that.
We've never done that.
I've never done that either.
That seems weird.
I actually saw a TikTok the other day, and maybe it's because I've been researching this and looking up stories, but it was a guy saying, my wife and her friends have a shared bank account where they all put in a certain amount of money. They just drop things in here and there, and they use it for trips. They use it for each other's birthdays. So if they have to buy a gift or they're going out
A
dinner,
horribly bad idea. As long as you have an understanding going into it. We always joke that we're gonna have a compound someday.
Right, but we've never talked about the finance part of it, which this makes me think. But this guy was like, he thought it was genius. He says, first of all, he was like, my wife has a bank account with 5 other women. I don't remember how many there were. And then in the comments, it was like 50-50, like, oh, this is a sisterhood. They're amazing. They've established this. They've made each other priorities. And then there were others in here like, those were more of the legal and the financial professionals, like, guys, this is a nightmare, please don't do this. And it was just very
Yeah,
interesting.
that is interesting.
Yeah, so I thought having that in there, like, are there groups out, this is a good question, hey listeners, do you know, or are you part of groups that have a shared friend, either bank account, or you
This is a bizarre concept. I want to know who out there, what besties have a shared bank account out there.
yeah.
And has it ever caused any kind of drama with one friend maybe buying something out of the
Yeah,
group
who
that
gets
not
to
everybody
make the
approved of?
purchases, right? Like,
Right. That's a crazy dynamic concept.
but the way he was describing it was beautiful, because he's like, if they have a friend that has a milestone, they just automatically know they can send her flowers from that account. If they have someone pass away in their family, they automatically know they can send that. Someone's taking care of that. He was like all for it. He was like, I was surprised, but also, man, my wife's got some good people in her life. And I'm like,
I could see how that could go both ways.
right? That's how I was feeling.
It's a slippery slope.
I was like, I don't know but then, like you said, we joke about creating a compound and living on it with our group of friends. And we've never even thought about the financial, because honestly, we probably all just be like, either we're cooking or we're ordering in, and someone's going to take over. That's funny though, but I just thought it was interesting. So,
I don't know any of my friend girls that have like a joint bank account. Um,
me either.
it is an interesting concept. So let us
Yeah.
know if you guys have got that situation going on, then we want to hear about it and how's it working out.
Also, let us know what your thoughts are on planning group trips and how you split everything up. How are you splitting up the rooms and the cost of the room and who gets what room? How are you planning your activities? Are you expecting the group to participate in all, or hey, we're putting this agenda together. If you come, you come. How are you putting your group trips together? Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. That is about all we have for today. Just again, I think the big key takeaway is go into it with open communication. You know what I mean? The communication is key. And not all friend groups may vacation the way others will. Maybe there's
Right.
somebody that's like, I don't care if it's a sleeper sofa. I sleep like a baby. I like when my head hits the pillow, I'm out. So I don't
All right. If
care.
you come back with that answer, let us know what age group you're into. What generation are you? Because I is this an age thing? Because I am too old to settle
I'm
for
not
the air
sleeping on the
mattress
sofa
now. That's my
anymore.
thought. I am too old for
Mm-mm.
the air mattress. And too
Yes.
fluffy, because
And check out Splitwise, guys. Check out Splitwise, the app. They've got a free version, and let us know if you've been using it and how you like it. So yeah, the group travel can be amazing. You just have to have clear communication of what you're getting out of the trip ahead of time, and that will cut back on the drama. So we hope that you found this episode helpful. Um, and I think that's going to do it for today. Happy traveling, guys.
bye guys.